Say, what's cracking, YouTube? It's your boy 16 to life, and I'm back like I'm on a parole violation. Yard down! Now, for those of y'all that's new to my page, in 1994, I got arrested. I was eventually sentenced to 16 years plus life, and I served 24 years straight in the California prison system. During those times, I accumulated some good stories and some good insight on things related to prison. I'm going to share some with y'all today. If you like the video, hit that like button, leave a comment, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. That way, when I drop a story, you will be notified ASAP, and you can hop on it whenever you're ready. Also, I rap, but don't get it twisted. The flow is nothing like Curtis Blow. I'm telling you, listen. Go to my YouTube playlist, scroll down to gas stations. You're going to find a lot of my music there, and I guarantee you're going to be impressed. Now, let's hop right up into this story. Now, a lot of times you will see people who follow the prison YouTuber channels, you will see us discuss things about, fighting, riots, stabbings we seen, stuff like that, cell phones. But I don't think I've never seen a prison YouTuber discuss some of the more degrading and humiliating things that we have to endure in prison. I think a lot of us, we want to have a convict mentality, alpha male, tough guy mentality. And so after a while, it's kind of sad, but we actually become to normalize some of these things that we have to go through, right? And so as I think back about some of the things that we had to go through, it definitely was humiliating and degrading, and I'm gonna share some of the things with you guys today, right? So the first prison that I ever went to, Salinas Valley, is a level 4 maximum security. Matter of fact, it's the highest level of security prison that they have in the California prison system. One of the things that I was shocked to find out and learn that you had a lot of convicts who would use their toilet to wash their clothes, basically using the toilet as a wash machine. Now, the state issues you, they give you state boxers, pants, t-shirts, and stuff like that. We wouldn't wash that stuff in the toilet, but our own personal clothing. Every, what was it, 4 months, we could have a package sent from home, a 30-pound box where we could get, personal clothes, hygiene, tennis shoes, and stuff like that. So, some people would get sweatpants, sweat tops, personal t-shirts and stuff like that. And so those are the items that a person would use the toilet to wash those items. Now, in all prisons, you have convicts working in what's known as a porter, which is basically the capacity of a janitor, where they keep the day room clean, the tables and stuff like that. Now, while they're working that job, they have opportunity to get things like disinfectant, bleach, cleaning supplies, gloves. And so, of course, they would pass those things out as well to the convicts in the buildings so they could use that type of stuff to keep their cells clean, the walls clean, the toilets, so on and so forth, right? So now when you're in prison, right, and you taking a dump, you just don't sit there and dump in the toilet. Each time you drop one, it's called down one, drown one, which means each time you drop one, you reach back, you press the button that makes the toilet flush. And actually that worked as, that was something, the reason for that is first and foremost, so the cell wouldn't have a, it would help with the stench and the odor when you're taking a dump. And then also it would keep the toilet clean because you don't have, you don't have the logs just sitting in the toilet. So, and then of course, after we would use the bathroom, we still would get up and put the gloves on and clean the toilet extremely well. But still in all, it is still the toilet. So the process went like this, though. When you wanted to wash some personal items, you flush the toilet. Of course, you clean it, flush the toilet to get fresh water in there. Then you'd put a rag or something in the hole to stop the hole up. Then you'd flush the toilet several times to get you enough water up in there to put your shirt, your pants, whatever it was you was washing in the toilet, get you some soap, you get in there, you clean that. Now, me coming from the streets, like I said, this is the first time I've ever been to prison. So to see somebody using the toilet, putting their hands and stuff in the toilet where somebody's booty had just been on there, maybe, 5-10 minutes earlier, it was something that, it just shocked me, to keep it real with y'all. I was like, damn, I ain't doing no stuff like that. But eventually, after you're locked up in there, you wearing your shirts and stuff, your clothes, you have to get it washed. What else you gonna do? Now, the state does provide us with a mesh laundry bag. Sometimes it might be 2 or 3 feet long, maybe 4 or 5 feet in length, in order to put that in there. So you put all your clothes in there. Then it has a little tie around the top. You tie that, wrap it in a knot, and you can throw it in this big giant bin. And they, so the porters who work in there and stuff, they push that big giant cart to the laundry somewhere, and they can wash your clothes like that. But now those clothes that you put in that bag, they never come out of the bag, so they get washed and dried in the bag. Of course, with all the hundreds of everybody else, other people who are throwing their clothes in that bin. So of course that it doesn't sound like a sanitary practice. And then, like I said, the bag is only so big. You got your clothes in there, it's tied up, so the clothes don't have a chance to even open up. They're getting washed and dried in that bag. And if you put your personal clothes in that bag, there was a good chance, if you put, of course, your sweats, your personal t-shirts, sweat tops, or whatever, there was a good chance that your personal clothes wasn't even going to come back. And so that was one of the shocking things to me, using the toilet like somebody's open anus had just been on there a couple of minutes ago or whatever to wash to wash your clothes in. But like I said, when you're locked up in prison, sometimes you might be, due to a riot, a stabbing, a staff assault, you might be locked and confined to your cell for 2 months straight, 3 weeks straight, sometimes even a year or two straight, depending on the nature of the incident. So people had to improvise up in there. Another thing, that was degrading, like I said, you're locked in the cell all that time. Sometimes the cell might be as big as 2 bathrooms, sometimes not that big, just depending on what institution you was at. So of course, you're in the cell with somebody, you got to pass gas, he has to pass gas. You're in this small little box and you have to smell the stench of another grown person. Some of these dudes is 250, 300, 400 pounds up in there, you know what I'm saying? And so the protocol for when a person has to pass gas, you go down, you sit on the toilet. Of course, you don't take your clothes off and all that stuff for that practice. And then when you pass gas, you flush the button again, to suck the stench down. Now, the toilets in the prison system were unlike toilets that you would have in your home. They're hooked up to this big giant system, and the suction is enormous. The suction is, sometimes the suction is so loud it could wake you up at night. And I guess they do that because all those toilets is combined. They need a powerful sewage system to drain all that stuff. And then you got people throwing some of everything in the toilet, knives, metal, trash, paper. And so that's one good thing. The suction was extremely strong. And the same thing if a person had to go and do number 2. Now, like I said, sometimes you might be in there eating. Now, when it's a normal program and we're not on lockdown, if possible, you try to use the bathroom when your cellie is not in the cell. But like I said, due to the nature of prison, the lockdowns and stuff, that's not something that's always possible. So if you're in there, you tell your cellie, hey man, I gotta use the bathroom. So sometimes, depending on what institution, we were allowed to put up a privacy curtain. We could create a little string and hang it between the bunks and the toilet. Then you put up a sheet and pull the sheet to give yourself a little bit of privacy. But still in all, you're up in there with another man. You don't want to smell the stench, but sometimes you're forced to. There were certain things that we could do to try to help with the smell. There was always the baby powder method. Each time, you use the bathroom, you dump some baby powder, blow it into the cell. That would help with the smell a little bit. There was also sometimes incense and oils and stuff and stuff like that the inmates could have and order, especially the Muslims. They could order the a lot of those oils and stuff, and then you can make incense out of it. You get a little oil, you drop it on a toilet paper, roll it up, and light it. So it was certain little things that we could do to help mask the smell. But like I said, that stuff is still it's degrading and humiliating if you think about it. We grow up in a society where using the bathroom is somewhat of a personal act. And, you want your space, you want your privacy. You might have the bubble guts, you know what I'm saying? Your cellie sitting up in there, you making all these noises, and stuff. And so that stuff is like, degrading, humiliating. You don't want to hear that. Sometimes, of course, your cellie, he might put on the headphones and stuff, but all that stuff is still, it's still foreign to what we grow up doing. Now, you had many people up in there who'd be hungry. Everybody is not blessed to have food in the cell, to go to the canteen and stuff, and that's unfortunate, but that's just the nature of prison. Everybody doesn't have family that's able to help support them financially, right? And so normally they feed us about 6 o'clock, 6:30 in the morning. We'd get a sack lunch. The sack lunch would consist of 2 pieces of bread, maybe an apple, a milk, and a couple of graham crackers, and that's it. And then we would probably be fed dinner somewhere around 5 o'clock, between 5 and 6. So, if you outside exercising, you working out, you jogging, playing basketball, whatever, that food is definitely that food is definitely not a sufficient amount to keep a grown man fed. So maybe about 8 o'clock. 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night, your stomach start growling, you get hungry. Everybody, once again, does not have the extra food in there, or is not able to go to the canteen to help quell those stomach pains that you're going to get when you're sitting in prison. Some people, for whatever reason, they don't want to ask other people for soups and this and that. So some people took to, when we would go into the chow hall, they would try to double up. So depending on what institution that you was at, the chow hall, you go into the building, the building, it's a long, maybe a 40 or 50 feet stretch where you're walking. On the left side is the wall. It maybe be about 4 and 5 feet between the wall and a rail. Then out on the rail would normally be on the right-hand side. The wall would be on the left side. Then outside on the right-hand side of the rail, they'd have a bunch of, tables that's somewhat like you would see in a cafeteria. These metal tables, with 4 seats around them, and that's where the convicts would eat their food. When you'd walk down that long 50-foot stretch, you turn to the left, then you'd walk maybe another 10 or 15 feet, and there was a little window. Behind that window was the kitchen workers, and they would slide out your tray. And so some people would take to, trying to, as they're sitting over there eating their food, they'd sneak up under the rail again to try to go get another issue, because of course they're hungry. You'd have, 3 or 4 guards in the chow hall, watching everybody. Sometimes they'd catch the people. They'd come up there, try to get the second tray. The guard would step there and say, hey, man, you already ate. Get up out of here. So stuff like that, for a person who, you're hungry. So if you have to, if that's what you have to do to try to get another meal, that's what you have to do. But sometimes, it's degrading. People going to see you and clown you for not having food or whatever. So stuff like that can always just be, humiliating. Also, another thing was going to work. Now, they have certain trades, vocations, and jobs that's located in what is known as work exchange. And basically, you go through this gate, they have a metal detector, you walk through the metal detector, and then you go back to whatever job or vocational trade you're assigned to. Some of those trades might be welding, might be auto mechanics, carpentry, painting, or whatever. Now, some of these jobs, of course, had sharp tools and instruments that they didn't want they didn't want being snuck back to the main yard, and they didn't want that stuff, making its way into general population. People could make knives and stuff like that, but of course, some of that stuff would make its way back. But in order to try to prevent that stuff from coming back, they had a metal detector, which we would have to go through on the way back. Also, we would have to take all our clothes off, pants, shoes, socks. There's a dude standing right there. You pull your boxers down, you turn around, you cough. Sometimes, it's a guy there with a flashlight, shining his flashlight in your rectum or whatever. So, you don't know the sexual orientation of these guards or the sexual orientation of the 30, 40 people standing in line behind you, watching, as you squat and cough, get naked, and this type of stuff. So, of course, all this type of stuff is humiliating. But like I said, sometimes in prison, we had come to normalize this type of stuff. I think that one of the most exciting moments in prison for all convicts, prisoners, of course, is going on a visit. Whether you're going out there to see family, a lady friend, a wife, that was something that always got all the prisoners in good spirits, going to a visit to see their family. One of the more demeaning acts in prison occurred right after that visit, which was coming out. You have to get strip searched in order to go back to your building, because, of course, a lot of paraphernalia, drugs, are introduced during the course of a visit. And so once again, we'd have to come back, take our shirt off, our pants, socks, everything. Then we'd have to run our fingers through our mouth, lift our tongue up. Then we turn around. lift up the bottom of our feet so they can see our feet. Turn back around, lift up your, your man parts, show them that we're not hiding any type of paraphernalia. Turn around, then you bend over and you have to cough 3 times. Now, this is done in front of, it might be 3 or 4 guards there searching other convicts, and you may have another 10 or 15 people right there waiting to get searched. So it's not like they take you in a private area and search you by themselves, and it's you alone. You are in the, you are in the company of maybe 10, 15 people. It all depends on who's returning from their visit. And like I said, once again, we don't know the sexual orientation of these guards, or the people behind you. And so these are just some of the things that we had to deal with in prison that I don't see that's talked about or mentioned in a lot of these YouTube videos. The same thing with the shower. Sometimes, depending on what institution that you might be at, some of these showers were group showers. You might be in a shower with 2 or 3 people, or it might be a shower, a big giant shower with 4 or 5 shower heads, and you in there showering in the company of 5 or 6 other men. I remember a quick story. I had a cellie one time who told me something that occurred to him during a shower at the same institution that I was at, except for another yard. So how these showers looked is when you would walk into the shower, immediately to the back, there was a wall that had 4 or 5 shower heads on it. To the left, there was a long wooden bench, maybe 5, 6 feet, that was put there for the purpose of people after they showered, they could sit on the bench and get dressed. But of course, no one sat on that bench. Sometimes people would put their foot on the bench in order to get dressed, but no one would just sit on the bench. And so as my cellie showered, when he tried to exit the shower, there was a dude at the very end of the bench, right almost in front of the entrance and exit to the shower. Now he had he had 1 foot on the floor and his left leg up on the bench. The bench probably was maybe about 3 or 4 feet off the ground. So my cellie said, "Excuse me, man, I'm trying to get out." Now the dude is naked with his towel drying himself off. He's got dude's got 1 foot up. He's got one. He's got 1 foot up on the bench like this. He's washing off, got 1 foot up on the bench. So my cellie comes by and said, "Hey, excuse me, man, I'm trying to get by." The dude tell my cellie, "Go under, go under." He's talking about go between my 2 legs and put your head in the close vicinity of my balls and my swinging, dangling penis and go up under there. Now, my cellie was mad as hell, of course, So he said this dude right here was about 6'3", 6'4", big old giant dude. And he said the dude was a little off. Actually, they was on a yard for people who take medication and stuff like that. My cellie said he was extremely hot. My cellie was maybe about 5'8", maybe about 155 pounds, 160 pounds, He was hot. He said he knew he couldn't probably deal with that dude one-on-one. So he tried to come to the yard that he eventually came to where me and him was cellies at and get some of his homies to go back and help him deal with this dude. Later on, he told me that dude ended up going off on his other cellie and thrashed him. So he said the dude was kind of crazy. But these are just some of the things that we have to deal with in prison. I think I would have went and got the biggest object that I could have found if I didn't have a knife at that time and went back and got that old boy for that disrespect. That was extremely disrespectful, right? Another thing, we have to deal with is letters. When you're writing your family, you're locked up. Sometimes, you may have been away from your family for years and years on end. Maybe you have young children out there who are growing up now. You're trying to write them and raise them. All our letters, when we write our letters must be read basically before they're sent out. So the process is when we write a letter, we wouldn't seal the envelope. And for a long time after I got out, when I would go to mail something, I wouldn't seal the envelope because, like I said, I was locked up for 24 years, and that was a practice that I had become accustomed to. So you write the letter, you put the letter in the envelope, and you put it in the mailbox. And then, of course, all the mail is collected by the COs and stuff. And then at night, we would mail the letters. You could mail them anytime, but they would be collected around 9 o'clock at night. And then the guard who was on that shift would read through the letters and stuff. And then if there wasn't anything that was I guess, against the rules or whatever in the letter. They'd seal the letter and send it out. Well, this is something this was a practice that a lot of guards did, especially female guards, You have some dudes in there who have several women they're writing, women they're involved with. If you made the mistake or you was dumb enough to send a letter out, you might have a female named Felicia and Latoya. You know what I'm saying? And so you write both of them and you send the letter out. So the guard up there, especially the female guards, especially if you got into it with them, cussed them out, she's reading the letter. Okay, Chill just wrote Felicia. Oh, okay. Then, they read another letter by somebody else, read another letter. See another letter that I wrote to Latoya. Hold on. Didn't Chill just write Felicia? Oh, okay. So you got both of these women. So then she'd go back to the letter that I had just wrote Felicia. She'd get that letter out and she would intentionally put the letters in the wrong envelopes, seal the letters, and send them on their way. So maybe about 4 or 5 days later, you go hop on the phone. You give Felicia a call. Hey, what's up, baby? You coming down here Saturday? No, fuck you. Tell Latoya to come down here. Yeah, motherfucker. You like what you talking? Yeah, motherfucker. You sent me a letter and blah, blah, blah. They would do all this type of stuff, Not to mention also, when you on the phone, your phone calls is monitored. Your phone call. And that's one thing that I used to hate. I used to hate just knowing that someone was privy to my personal feelings, my thoughts. Even if I wasn't talking about anything extremely important or significant, I just didn't like knowing that I had some guard listening to my phone conversation. Especially if you're having a family moment. You might like I said, you might have a young child, a young son, a young daughter. You're trying to be the best parent that you can be from afar, and you have this person knowing that this person is just hearing and listening to your conversation. Now, for some people, it didn't seem to bother them. Some people it didn't seem to bother them, but for me, that's something that I especially disliked. But it's a lot of, like I said, it's a lot of humiliating, degrading things that we had to deal with while we were in prison. And a lot of us normalized that, And I would think sometimes, especially when I would see individuals who would say, oh, man, this is my 4th time in prison or whatever. It seemed like, for one, they almost said it as if it was a badge of honor. And secondly, I would think, well, why would a person put himself in a position to potentially subject himself to coming back to prison? But the more time I did, and especially as I gained my freedom, I realized that it's not easy. Some people, once again, do not have the family, friends, and support to change their environment. Some people don't have anybody. And so there was a point in time also that California Department of Corrections demanded that you would parole to the same area or the same county where you caught your where you were sentenced from. So let's say if you was from Los Angeles and you caught your case in Los Angeles and you went to jail, but now after you served your 3 or 4 years, you wanted to parole to San Francisco. No, you had to parole to the county where you committed your offense. And what that was doing was that was sending you sometimes right back to the same environment, to the same atmosphere, the same friends, the same community where you had committed your crime earlier. And so especially back then, being a felon, it was hard to get a job, so you look up, you find yourself once again in the same company of the people or the elements that took you to prison the first time. So sometimes, I know sometimes, even myself included, we have a tendency to become judgmental without having a clear understanding of what potentially led a person to prison and some of the dynamics that played a factor in a person going to jail anyway. But anyway, those are just some of the degrading, humiliating things that we have to suffer and endure while in prison. You already know what it is. It's your boy 16 to life. Resume normal program.